Hello. This video will help you finish slides 4 through 7 of your narrative project. Slides 4 through 7 need to be finished when we talk about it today in class or during your async work. So listen closely. Right now I'm on slide 4, a story map. I was able to fill out my story map because I chose a story that I wanted to write about. The story I wanted to write about was riding a roller coaster for the first time ever. I thought about some interesting hooks that might get the reader interested in my story. I thought about the most exciting, emotional part of my story, which is riding the roller coaster Goliath. And then I thought about what happened before and after. I added details, short details, to my story map. And then I thought about my conclusion of the story. This one's a little bit harder for some people. The conclusion is sometimes what you learned or how you felt overall about your experience. Everybody pretty much has their story map done in our classes, which is great. I'm proud of you guys for getting this far. Our next step is to take our story map and add it into a more detailed example. So let's look at a more detailed example. In this example, you want to talk about your main story. Just give a short little example. My main story is riding a roller coaster for the first time, so that's what I would type here. Then you want to tell what characters will be in your story. That's what you put in the orange box. In the yellow box, you're going to copy and paste your hook. Your hook should already be in your story map, so you don't really have to add a lot of detail here. Just copy and paste. Next, you're going to copy and paste your rising, climax, falling, and conclusion from your story map. So all these details I'm just going to copy and paste into these tan colored boxes. These green boxes that are underneath the tan colored boxes are for details. So you're going to give details of what happened in the beginning. You're going to give details of what happened in the most exciting part. And you're going to give details of what happened after the most exciting part. And then finally, details about your story, how you felt about it, and what you learned at the end. These details could be what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, all sensory details. And these details will also be transition words like first, next, then, finally. These details will also need to be dialogue, which means you want to talk about some conversations that the characters in your story are having in the rising part of your story. What are they saying in the climax? What did they say after? And finally, you could also add some dialogue in your conclusion. So all of these details should be filled out. Without this, it will be very hard to draft. So let's take a look at my example. Let's go back first. Everybody in our classes, for the most part, has this smaller story map filled out, which is great. So now what you need to do is copy and paste all of these sections and put it into your detailed story map. So like I said, my main story is I conquered my fear of roller coasters. The characters are me, my brother, and my nephew. And look at this. The hook is exactly the same as it is over here. Whoosh, I felt the wind of the roller coaster whizzing past me and I looked up at the tall ride. My stomach dropped. And look at this. Whoosh, I felt the wind of the roller coaster whizzing past me. Exactly the same. Look at this detail. Rising, I was afraid of roller coasters. Climax, I got on the coaster. Falling, I got off of the roller coaster. And then conclusion, I learned I can do that. Let me see if that's similar to what I have in my other story map. And the answer is yes. It is very similar. So these tan boxes should be very easy for you to just copy the same exact words that you have in these sections of your white story map. Now what I did was I added some details. So in my rising of the story, I talked about how I was afraid of roller coasters ever since I was little. I'm also going to talk about how I told my brother about my idea to maybe get over my fear. I'm also probably going to talk about how it felt to be afraid of roller coasters when I was younger. And then I'll discuss how he came to visit me from Oklahoma and we went to Six Flags. My next paragraph will be about getting to Six Flags and seeing the roller coaster, getting on the roller coaster. I will talk about the sounds that I heard. I'll talk about the way that my body felt. I'll talk about what I saw. I will talk about where I sat. I'll give specific details in my climax. And then afterwards, I'll talk about, or I will write about, how I got off the roller coaster, how my body felt, how I felt excited. I might even add some dialogue in there to help my story become more exciting. And then finally, I'm going to add some details for my conclusion. So now let's draft it out. I have my hook here. I added a few more details. And look, one day I decided to conquer my fear. I told my brother I wanted to ride roller coasters, and look at this. I have a detail right here that says I told my brother. And this is me making that into a nice, strong sentence. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to take all of your rising action and then make nice, strong sentences for each box. That will be your first paragraph, and maybe your second paragraph if you added details to your hook. And then you're going to look at your climax and turn these boxes into nice, strong sentences and put it in your paragraph. So here I'm describing the Goliath. The Goliath was huge. I describe where I sat. I describe where my brother sat. I describe what happened when the ride started. And then finally when the ride dropped. So I am taking these details of the rising, climax, falling, and conclusion, and I'm writing strong sentences. So what you should find is that you will have one paragraph, two paragraphs, three paragraphs, and four paragraphs. Make these small details into nice, strong sentences. Whoops. So my Bitmoji says, time to write it all out. I use my story maps to help me write such a long story. Don't forget the periods and punctuation. So don't forget to use these story maps to help you make your writing into paragraph form. This is the point where you should all be today. Some of you have not finished this and you need to. It will help you organize your writing really nicely. So you must finish this. And then when you're done with this, I want you to go to slide 7 and draft your story out, which means write it with sentences, write it in paragraph form. And then in class, either today or tomorrow, we are going to discuss how to add dialogue to your story. If you still have questions, don't forget to come to my help room. I will post in Google Classroom when I am open to having students in my help room. I can't have a help room every day, but I have it about every other day. All right, well, if you need help, you can comment on this video in the Google Classroom, or you can come to my help room. But everybody should have slides 6 and 7 done as soon as possible.